Thank you. I'm Bob Bernhard. I'm the Vice President of Research, and as you heard, I was involved in the launch of IGD. It's my pleasure to be here on the podium to give a few remarks. Ray asked me if I would comment on the strategic plan in context of the history that goes back to the beginning, and I'm very pleased to do that because I think two things. One, gives me a chance to talk about how pleased I am to see the original vision and what we had hoped to do when we initiated this idea come to fruition and get better all the time. And the second is to basically pass along some of the things we learned from the original investigation we did to identify whether or not we were going to go forward with this initiative and show how those things have been incorporated into the strategic plan. My history actually goes back before Ray discussed, 2012 when we launched it. Actually, it goes back a couple years prior to that. I came here in 2007, and I was very fortunate that when I arrived, the Board of Trustees had identified some resources and charged the university with advancing its research programs around a few specific themes. They wanted us to be specific, not ecumenical, not spread the money all around, but rather identify certain places where we could be excellent. The first two rounds of that, we refer to it as the SAPC initiatives, and the ultimate resulted in the Strategic Research Initiatives, the SRIs you'll hear it referred to. The first two rounds of that were faculty generated. So we asked our faculty for all their best ideas and chose those that had the characteristics we were looking for and funded them in a very appreciable number. But there were a lot of people taking notice of what Notre Dame was doing and were very impressed, and a lot of people felt left out of that process of generating ideas. And so there were both people inside the university, there were administrators at the university who weren't considered faculty members, people like me who weren't considered faculty members anymore, and there were outsiders who had noticed what we were doing, who wanted a voice and had good suggestions for us. So the provost commissioned me to start looking through these suggestions and see if we could identify some ideas that perhaps were beyond the horizon of what our faculty were thinking about, but made sense for the university to consider. I commissioned a consultant, worked with that individual. We eventually surfaced 17 ideas, and then reduced that number down to about 6 or 7, just between the two of us. Then we began to investigate each of those ideas. One of them on that list was referred to as nation building. It didn't take us long to figure out that was a very bad name. So it became global development by the time we started to float the ideas externally. In that vetting process, I visited with the State Department, USAID. I think at the time I probably had meetings with almost all of the first level of administration in Raj Shah's USAID administration. CRS, this was the Ken Hackett days. We visited the Department of Defense. We had a lot of conversations with companies, particularly their social responsibility arms. We talked to foundations that were in the aid world. We talked to other universities. And we talked to a lot of people inside Notre Dame. A lot of the questions we asked were, as referred to earlier, Notre Dame is kind of late to the game here. Is there a place for us? If there is a place for us, where should we consider? What would be the themes that Notre Dame should pursue? I would say that I was gratified, surprised, energized by the resounding yes, Notre Dame should be in this world that I received. I remember one individual I talked to that didn't have a high profile at the time, ended up having a higher profile later. Gail Smith, at the time was in the Office of Faith-Based Programs in the White House. And she looked at me in the first 2 minutes of the conversation and said, Well, you're a values-driven organization. You should definitely be, and we want you in the portfolio of people that are delivering in this space. I didn't even know what that meant at the time, so I actually began to think a lot about it. And what I realized is that a lot of the people that would be in the space Notre Dame is in were not universities. We're not doing things in an evidence-based approach, and in many ways that were driven by sort of a business development agenda rather than a agenda that was value-based. And so the outcome of a lot of those conversations was, yes, get into this area. You are not too late. There's plenty of room for Notre Dame, and we want you in this space. So what should we do? Well, the first thing I heard was, do not be an implementer. Universities don't know how to do that. You charge too much. You don't do it reliably. We got other places we can go to deliver these services. And Notre Dame would make a mistake if they built an infrastructure that would make us an implementer. Relate that to CRS, for example. Secondly was there is an absence of evidence-based studies going on, and we really need people to do monitoring, evaluation, impact assessment, and so forth. And we would definitely recommend that you get involved with that. Third, think completely in terms of partnering. In other words, the best work you can do in this evidence-based, lessons learned world is to partner with the implementers and be involved in real studies and see what's going on. Fourth is global development is multidisciplinary. You are not going to be able to take a water person into an aid situation and solve the problem just as an environmental issue. There are going to be politics involved, there are going to be security issues involved, there are going to be economics involved. These things have to cross your university in order to be effective. And lastly, these things need to be field-based. If I heard anything that was a query of how well we could do in this space, it was, can you get your faculty, students, and staff into the field to be there and see actually what's going on? Because this won't work if you are sitting in your offices. So we brought all that back. That was pre-launch. Spent some time here talking about this with a couple working groups. I didn't see as many of the working group people in the audience as I expected, but I have to say I acknowledge a lot of the thinking that went on in those early stages, typically with associate deans, department chairs, and people that I knew that would be active as investigators in the initiative were a part of those conversations. And I can remember several key moments when things sort of came together. Things like the understanding that there was a three-part mission for IGD: to look at monitoring and evaluation or impact assessment. Secondly, to think in terms of training, because that would be our brand as a university. And thirdly, that we needed to do project management, because this was the only way that we were going to take on bold projects that had impact across the landscape that we were hoping to affect. The other thing we learned in that early process, given conversations we had with the working groups and then with the deans as we began to coalesce on what this research institute ought to look like, was that not many people understood this vision well. And there was sort of an agenda of show me that had to be undertaken, where we had to figure out what our people had to see what was going to happen. And so there had to be some investments in how we were going to implement this at the university. So that takes us to about 2012. At that point, I had enough of a mandate and enough of an idea what we wanted to do to recruit Michael Swiker. And Michael has been acknowledged by the two previous authors. I probably should be the one acknowledging and thanking him the most, because I have to say that, first of all, I hired him. And secondly, he really had very much a responsibility to take this from zero to something pretty significant. And I was not around and hovering over him. He had to do a lot of this on his own. And he was a huge energy, understood how to navigate the halls of the university, and has done an awesome job in bringing it forward. To show the university how this would work, we knew we had to be opportunistic. So Michael and I decided that it was okay to take a $30,000 or $20,000 grant to begin with. I have to say I gave him a license to bring in some contracts that did not have faculty and students on them originally, so that we could get staffing and other things established. But there was always an idea that eventually the idea was that the grants would be significant, they would be able to sustain the IGD, and that we would have to develop more rapport with the faculty, and there would have to be more collaboration with the academy as it grew. So that whole period is going to be an interesting case study someday to see how the $30,000 grants grew into $150,000 grants, grew into $1 million grants, and then potentially into $70 million grants. And at the same time the staffing grew, faculty began to see what we were doing and where we could help, and how the IGD was not stepping on their toes, but in fact complimenting them and helping them. And Michael grew that in what I would call phase one. Phase two, I would say, started a little bit before Ray acknowledged it, because when the Keough School was basically announced, before it was actually launched, there were discussions with Scott Appleby about moving the IGD to the Keough School. This was sort of at the same time that the Keough School was developing its own mission and vision. And one of the moments I remember is when the theme or the mission of the Keough School to focus on integral human development came out. That was a moment of significant coherence and resonance for me, because that told me that there was going to be a real home for IGD. What we understood as its mission and its three-part effort was going to fit directly into the Keough School. As that happened, in that what I call phase one or phase two period, it became more clear how the IGD was going to connect with the academy. I echo some of the things that Scott and Ray have said about that being a much more natural thing now with the Keough School than it ever could have been before the Keough School was here. We benefited from that, and while it was still under my responsibility, we began to see things begin to happen for the IGD to connect to the academy. And perhaps, and I hope this is true, that the combination of the Keough School and IGD was a benefit in recruiting Ray here as the director. The opportunity that he had here was clear, and then we were able to recruit him here as our director. I also began to see synergy develop with the institutes that are part of the Keough School, that have been a little challenging to do it prior to that announcement of the Keough School. So all of the momentum that was generated from that phase was really pretty significant in my mind, and I appreciate it. To the current phase three, I'll call it, with the new strategic plan, you can see from my comments how what I see in this strategic plan resonates with what we were told as long ago as 8 years ago. It resonates with what we built before the IGD had a connection to the academy through the Keough School. It resonates with what we learned and grew while it was a part of the Keough School, but before this plan was created. I think it's a nice combination of both the advice I received in the early days, the lessons we learned along the way, and the experience that Ray has brought here. I think it's a sharper mission and vision than we have had in the past. it's better connected to the academy, and importantly to me, it's bolder than we've ever been able to be up to this time. So I congratulate you all, Ray, Michael, and the team at IGD, and I wish you well, and I'll be here to support this going forward. So thank you.